me a stumper. I'm part of what's called the QuickBooks Speakers Bureau. These are all the brightest and best QuickBooks from throughout the country. These people work in LA, New York, Dallas, huge companies. And I will pose the question. The question has been posed here, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you all in the back have the same question. You would want to know if there's a way to, it wasn't you in the back, it was the woman over here. Oh, there you go. Question was, if your progress invoices, you want to know, relative to what you have invoiced, the status of those invoices connected to the status of the job as a whole.
Yes.
Right. The estimate of the job as a whole. Okay. Because you're really dealing with two pieces. You're dealing with the progress invoicing and the accounts receivable. And like you said, if this is all done, you've got the total invoicing amount there, which matches the total estimate, you can go back. That's why you get it there. So you're really trying to connect two parts of QuickBooks that may not be connected. But I'll pose the question. So I've got your email address. I'm handing out a thing. If you wanted to put your email address on it, I could email you back a response on it. What's your first name?
Jennifer.
Jennifer? All right, payroll. I'm giving you some general best practices, general principles as they relate to payroll. Really, if you have employees and you are committed to job costing, you really should do payroll internally. Okay, that's the general overarching principle. I have a couple people in the back that will attest to the difficulty of trying to do job costing and doing payroll through ADP paychecks. You can do it, it's just complex to do the job costing. So, two ways to use QuickBooks to do payroll as part of your job costing. QuickBooks does have payroll services. They have the whole gamut, very simplistic, where you can get the basic tax tables in there, to more advanced where they do all the payroll for you. In between. QuickBooks, I believe this has changed with the 2009 version, and shame on them for it. There used to be a manual payroll feature that you would basically be able to mimic the payroll process. In the other versions, there is the manual payroll feature. And you would be responsible for calculating taxes. You'd have to get your Schedule E and your Schedule M and calculate all the taxes and all that stuff. So it would get the job costing done for you and basically be mimicking payroll. I don't think that's available in 2009. I was looking for it the other day and I couldn't find it. So that may not be available presently. The setup of payroll to do proper job costing, I have staff in the room. Someone who purchased payroll through QuickBooks and listened to the support person on the other end, giving their advice on how to set up from a job costing standpoint. It was way up. This is not meant to self-promotion, but if you want to, if you're committed to doing payroll, it needs to be set up properly from a job costing standpoint. There aren't many that know how to do that, and the people on the other end of the phone, they really don't know how to do it. So if you're committed to that, it should be someone like me that will help you set up and make sure payroll is set up for job costing. So the key elements of proper setup are your preferences. In QuickBooks, there are payroll and time tracking preferences, setting up your employees, and setting up your payroll items. So as far as your preferences, you've been there before, you go to the edit menu, you click on preferences, and you have your company preferences tab, and you basically have full payroll, no payroll, or complete payroll. I don't believe this option was available in 2009. I believe QuickBooks got out of the complete payroll service. I think they spin that off to the ADP or paychecks, but they do have everything short of that. So if you were going to use payroll, you would click on the full payroll feature, and that would activate a lot of features within the program. And then there's some here for time tracking. Again, you can track time, not necessarily using payroll. Again, I mentioned that earlier. It's a good idea to do that. So if you're not going to use the payroll service, at least you track time and you can compare how much time was spent on a particular project relative to what you estimated. Now you have to set up your employees. So let me go through the preferences.
You're saying that you don't think the 2009 has anything capability doing payroll anymore?
No, complete payroll. So complete payroll is where, see that there was a button there, complete payroll? That's where you call up QuickBooks, gave hours, and they do everything. They do paychecks, they do deposit, they do your taxes.
Oh, them themselves.
Beg your pardon?
Them themselves.
Payments into it.
I mean, like I used to do payroll, and all they did was just kept updating the tax things, and everybody, once you set every employee up with their Social Security number, their claims, and all that,
Right.
all you had to do was punch in the hours, and everything went to where it was supposed to go.
Right.
And then I could do 940s, 941s, W-2s, and all that. You're saying that 2009 can't do that anymore?
No, that's QuickBooks 2009 can do that. I'm talking about where QuickBooks, QuickBooks Payroll, Intuit, they do everything. So you call up a human being and you say, Fred's hours for 5 hours.
Okay, using them as a service.
Yeah, so they don't have that option anymore.
But 2009 can still do what I just said.
Right, so that little button that said complete payroll, I don't think that's in the
And then you just pay for the tax table updates, descriptions, and
tax forms, yeah. So at the least what QuickBooks can have, which is real nice, is they'll have the state tax forms, tables, and the federal tax tables built into the program. So it'll calculate all of that for you, and if you purchase a certain level of payroll, you'll have all the state payroll forms and all the federal payroll forms, which you can then print and send, and it's recognized and accepted by the federal government and the state government. All right, so you look at it. Payroll employees, company preferences. Can I turn this on? Oops. All right. Sorry, there's some sound there. Okay, so you have QuickBooks Payroll, full payroll, no payroll. And like I said, on these buttons here, but going backwards, it will be sitting in there. So if you're committed to using QuickBooks for your payroll service, you check this off. If you're using a third-party payroll, you would click no payroll. And then there's some neat features in here. You can have QuickBooks, like with the checks, if you type in the landlord and the rent, or I think I showed the Cal telephone, you typed in and it came up with the telephone automatically. If you have people that their earnings are consistently the same, you can have a copy from check to check. This is a very important feature you want to make sure you check off. Job costing, class and item tracking for paycheck expenses. If you are doing class tracking, this will assume one class for the entire paycheck. But if you have employees that are working some week, they're working on, if your classes are by location, so they're working at different locations, or if one week they're, one day of the week they're working on a commercial project, and the next one they're working on a residential project, you want to make sure you check this earnings item, and you can get that breakout by class within one individual paycheck.
Frank, is that where the roofer who wasn't always on the roof, you would do that and keep track of the type of work he was doing during the 40 hours, 10 hours he was on the roof and 30 hours he wasn't?
No, that would be the particular item, that would be in the item list.
Okay.
So they'd be doing siding is one thing and roofing is another.
Got it, okay.
No, this is more the commercial, residential, new construction, Hyannis, Fallon, Boleens, that kind of thing. Now, employee defaults, you can set up employee defaults in here for if you knew that basically when you hire people, they're all going to have basically the same setup. You can qualify all of this here, so every time you add a new employee, a lot of it's already pre-filled. Time tracking, very simple. You just track off and track time, first day of the work week.
create invoices from a list of time and expenses and so on. So again, whatever your specific preference is, you can check off. At the least, you want to check off this do track time. Now, if you go to the employee list, so we just click down here on the home page, employees. So I'll show you one already filled out. We got Dan Miller here. So there's various tabs here. There's the personal info, payroll and compensation, employment info, and workers' comp. So the personal is pretty basic. It's name, social security number, gender, date of birth. We've got the address and contact information, and any additional information, again, that we talked about before. You can assign billing rate levels in the case of an electrician, journeyman, or apprentice, that kind of thing. Then you can go to payroll and compensation information. Again, this is a little complex. You don't know what some of these are in the way of the taxes. It gets into, they have to fill out a W-4 and all that, and you have to fill this out accordingly. Filing status and what they're subject to. Again, QuickBooks doesn't do some of the things from Massachusetts. It won't do the Massachusetts Workforce Training Fund automatically. So again, some of these, I would strongly suggest you have someone overlooking your shoulder or have someone do it for you, because once the setup's in here, then you're good to go. For this employee, if you knew they were always working on a particular class, you can do that in the default. And you can override it in the paychecks if you wanted, but this is basically for default. And I leave here for your items here. What you want to do, this is part of the setup that the people that on the phone won't know, is in your payroll item list, you want to distinguish between your field people and your administrative people. So you, in theory, here would have, so you could call this regular hourly, that would be administrative people, and then you'd have your field hourly. Because your field hourly, when you set up that item, is going to connect to, remember, your cost of goods sold section. So every time they get paid, it's going to hit those direct costs and reflect your margin properly. So in here you would have the regular pay for administrative and the regular pay for your field. So you want to make sure on this list, when you create it, that there is a distinction between the field people and your administrative. That's one key difference. Workers' compensation. This is a really nice feature within QuickBooks. I'm going to touch on the report later. You assign a workers' comp code to them. You go back here. You have your workers' comp list. So you have all the codes in here. As you see here, roofing, carpentry, salesperson. And you get those rates from your insurance policy. If you have trouble reading that, you can just call your insurance agent and say, hey, I want to get all my codes in here. The specific rates. So you have the code, the description, and the rate. In this case here, I believe it's rate per 100. And indicate when you're going to start using the rate and having. So what QuickBooks will do is actually paying your people. It'll be calculating what their equivalent workers' comp premium would be for that. So at the end of the year at audit time, and I've seen this time and time again, you print out the workers' comp report in here, and it'll calculate by employee, by classification code, what your total premium should be for that period of time. Print that out, give it to the auditor, and you're good to go. So again, if you've set this up properly, assigned it to the employees properly, then you'll get good information out of that report. And as I alluded to on the earlier session, these auditors don't ask questions. If they see that you've set this all up right and the report makes sense and all of that, then they take it as is. And people have really been blown away by how auditors have responded to the reports out of QuickBooks. And I've heard auditors say, if someone's using QuickBooks properly, they get thrilled seeing what comes out of here.
So when you said that it'll give you an amount or quote the amount of hours that go to the employees for the workers' comp and stuff, kind of what Luann was saying, excuse me, going back to what Luann was saying, how much you said earlier today, the fee for a roofer is gonna be different than a fee for somebody who's cutting a lawn, than a fee for somebody who's doing painting.
Correct.
Say you have somebody, one person that does all three. When you punch in their hours, you give them 3 hours at a roofing rate, 3 hours at a painting, so that, I mean, say you're paying them all the same, period, doesn't matter that,
Right.
but as far as for the workers' comp, do you break down the hours like that?
Within the paycheck, yes, you can break that out. Although the default is this 5552 within the paycheck, you can override that and assign it to the specific code that they were working on.
But I mean, like, could you go 20 hours for painting and 30 hours, whatever, bang, bang, so that report doesn't hit you with the highest, the roofing?
Right, yeah, that's what I'm saying. So within a paycheck, so if they, within a 40-hour paycheck week, they worked on 3 different workers' comp codes, you can break the paycheck out among those codes.
And travel, when they're in a car driving, would that also be all their?
No, it's just what they're working on the job at that particular time.
Say they drive an hour to the drive though. Are you going to be paying them at a roofing rate, a painting rate, or?
I don't know how the
You don't get paid them for travel?
travel time, I guess they're,
Is that too much? I'm asking.
yeah, I'm not sure. I think the auditors would have you assign that to their highest rate, I would guess, I mean, I don't think you just, personally, I wouldn't assign it to any code if they're traveling, so when you generate the report, they'd be unclassified. So that would be up to the auditor saying, okay, what was all this? Oh, this was travel, and he'll assign it to whatever you assign it to. So I would actually not assign a code to that because you can have a debate with them. Saying, what did you put that hours to? Oh, you put it to this, why are you putting it to his highest codes? Instead of you assuming it'd be a good point of discussion for the travel time. Yes?
So do you assign it through what you, when you enter the time for them? You're entering what they,
No, the paycheck.
on the paycheck itself?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think you can in the timesheets. This is generally, larger companies use this, so I don't see this a lot. No, I'm sorry, you can put it right on the timesheet. Okay, so if you don't use the payroll in here, you can put it in timesheets and all that. Okay, did you all see that? So the workers' comp code is on the timesheets and on the paychecks, so depending on how you use the program.
So if you had the customer job and the service item was roofing, and you pick the code, and then what you pay them hourly, which is go by what you said they were on field staffing. If you pay them the same rate, no matter what.
Right.
Unless you put in a field roofer or field landscape, you just pick one code for field staff. That's how you set it up.
You do the generic, because, well, let me get an employee in here. So this is driven by two things, and it's not showing here because they're not set up by payroll items, but when you're entering in someone's time and creating a paycheck, it's driven by two things: the service item, what they were doing at a particular time, and their payroll item, which is generally classified. So all you need is field hourly. You don't need field painting, field landscaping, any of it, because you've got the service item saying they're working on landscaping and painting. So that doesn't show here because we haven't set up payroll in here.
But if you don't do it by service item, then you can just do it with another.
You have to do it by service item. You have to.
I don't do it by service item.
You have to do it by in the timesheets. It needs a service item. You can't complete a timesheet without a service item.
I'll have to look at mine because I don't do it by service item.
Here you have to pick an item from this list.
On this one, yeah.
Tomorrow you will too. You have to enter all those items though, or you can't distinguish.
Because how else do you know what they're working on?
I do it by the customer job.
No, but you have to. What will they work with? Painting? Were they whatever? You know.
We only do electrical, that's it. So it's always electrician. I don't have to do service items.
So why are you asking the question? It's all electrical.
You don't have items. Do you use items?
I use items in my estimates and invoices. Yeah, but I don't pay my person by the one like they put. I pay them by the job that they were at.
Right.
By the number of hours they did.
Right, but generally, well, we can talk about this later. But generally, the process is. I mean, I can't escape this. I mean, if I hit here, let's see, I'm going to save and close. Okay, good. And then you put in an item. Well, then you're missing a piece here. I don't know why you would never put in an item, because you want to know what they were doing. You don't know what they're doing. So if you're saying they're always electrical, I just create one item called electrical item. Because when you're doing your reports, your job costing reports, and you're doing your item reports, it's all going to be blank. It's going to say no item for all that labor.
Yeah, I don't use the report per item. I do it by job.
All right.
Yeah. So it works for me.
Right, it works for you. Yeah. So.
If you have your guy and they work on doing the jobs during the week,
Right.
and your next employee has also worked on Tuesday, can you do a report that says how many hours you just on one of the jobs?
Get a report on just how they work on one of the jobs?
Like your total hours on that?
Yes. Yeah. So, okay, so technically, I guess the program will allow you to not include an item on here, but from what I'm instructing you all today, you would definitely want to put in an item, because if you wanted to look back and know what your employees are working on at any given point, in particular, you usually have more than one item. Electrical wiring, electrical, repair, installing a generator, there's just a zillion different things.
I'm thinking if they're at a job, say they're at that job for cruise, and they were there for 8 hours, if they did 100 items, I am not going to enter in for 100 items per employee.
Well, wouldn't they go and do roughing in or trim out? They could do roughing in or trim out.
Well, they could do electrical. I do an estimate by room, right? Bedroom, first bedroom, second bedroom, third bedroom. That estimate's 4 pages long.
Right. But they're doing wiring, like you were saying, right? Doing
wiring, trim out,
installing plugs or whatever. Who cares about the rooms? From the standpoint of what they were doing, is what function would they perform?
So I'd have to add a service item to my list there.
I'm not saying you can do that. I'm just saying, as a general rule for all of you here, I think at any given point in time, when you're looking back and you're saying, how did I do on this job? To say, okay, well, I was over under the job. Then you look at the labor component and you see this big fat number that's not broken out. And to analyze that and say, why were we off here on the hours basis? I don't know, because they weren't broken out.
It would make more sense for us to do a service item than he's saying, the rough and then the end. Not by item, it's too much.
Right, well, but an item is rough, wiring, finish work,
yeah, like
plug,
that.
those are all items. And
I mean, if you look at my estimates, they're like 4 pages because it's an item of smoke detectors, outlets, switches, Singapore, people. I mean, I can do that.
Right. So, and I always tell people, group things into major categories. So, if in a given 8-hour day, you ask you guys, well, what were you doing most of the day? I was doing rough wiring. Okay, great. I don't care about all the little stuff in between. The bulk of what you were doing was rough wiring. You create that category. You can always group it by major categories. But for any meaningful purpose for you to understand your costs and where you're winning and losing, you have to know what your guys are doing at any given point in time. So I'm disappointed that the program would let you enter a timesheet without getting a service time. It should stop you and say, no, you can't, because it's doing a disservice.
Let me do that for 5 years.
Yeah.
I don't want to do the old 6 and now the other.
Yeah, that's doing you a disservice. So, yeah, what are we doing? Yes.
I'm sorry. Does everybody use the service item? Like, would be when I have the service items? Nonprofit or?
Yeah, consulting, right? You do consulting, right? That would be a service item. So if you generated, again, all these items are for products or services you bill for. So you prep a bill. Let's say you're doing an annual and you're writing up a bill. Okay, 5 hours at $75 an hour, doing what? Whatever you were doing, whatever you're billing them for and they're paying you for, that's an item.
Can you show us how to create a new item?
A new item? Okay. So remember, so down here, you click on item and new, and you have your choice here. Remember, services for labor, inventory part and assembly, and non-inventory part is for materials. Rough wiring, okay. So service. So you do rough wiring, okay, and So here, as I say, best practice is you would pick your cost of goods sold account, and here you would have direct labor, and you might, does that have that here? Cost of goods sold, job materials. No, it doesn't have direct material in here, direct labor. So the closest thing to it is the subcontractors, and then the income account is construction income. So then you can put in your cost if it's, you're billing out at 40, cost you out, you're paying out $40 an hour, and you're billing out $60 an hour. Put those in. Generally, the service is non-taxable. And then sales, rough one. And that'll show up on all the receipts. You're welcome. Okay, so you're on.
How do you go for the report
I'll get to that. We've got a little, we jumped around a little bit here, so I will get to that specifically. So the workers' comp, so this is where you would add those categories and you would attach it to various employees under the work comp here, and you can vary it on the timesheet or on the paycheck if they were working on different things at different points in time. But this would be the default one that will come up automatically.
So that would come automatically to the receipt code on the timesheet?
Yep, timesheet and paycheck. All right. Okay, payroll items. These are again, another critical part of the setup.
I'm so sorry, I just have a little question.
Yeah.
Now, if payment is the argument for you, with regards to payroll, do you still have to worry about this stuff?
Well, they don't do that anymore. So they don't do everything for you anymore. They stopped end of last year, middle of last year, so they don't even have that option. So there's some part that you would do in here if you're using the payroll service.
So when it comes to taxes, they do all that. Because I think for a service, they're going to be doing, I know they said taxes and...
Who, QuickBooks did?
Yeah.
When did you sign up for that?
Probably not even a month ago.
Month ago? They said they'll do all the taxes.
That they'll handle that aspect. So.
QuickBooks. It's communicated to us that we got to communicate that they were dropping out of it and selling that service off to ADP. Maybe they haven't completed it yet. That's what I last heard. Maybe they changed their mind. I don't know. I thought it was a bizarre move because it's a very profitable service. So
They did drop it, and they still do it. Do I have to do it?
if you sign up now, so basically what you're paying them for is you're probably paying a monthly fee. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So if they told you they do it, then they do it, and then you hold them to it. And they provide a guarantee if they file late or if they screw up or something.
But what I'm saying is, do I still have to add what you just did?
Well, they would have, because you're going to get payroll with QuickBooks.
Yeah.
Right? So you're just calling them up and they handle all of it, so.
So they just don't get work.
Right. But you still have to record payroll in there. Now, a lot of it, you don't have job costing. So that element is, you have less complexity. And probably the default setup in QuickBooks, like what I'm saying here with the payroll items, when you say, hey, I've got payroll, it sets up these payroll items by default. Probably for you, they're more correct than with the job costing where they're not. For them, there needs a lot of tweaking to get it right. Okay? So you probably have less to worry about than they would. Okay? So the payroll items are created automatically when you activate a payroll subscription or the manual payroll. And as I say here, the default setup is not adequate for job costing. So the key issues is that you need to make sure that the payroll items that are set up are distinguished between your field people and the administrative people, and that they're linked properly to your direct labor accounts and your cost of goods sold. That's the basic premise. And as I say here, I strongly recommend working with someone like myself or a CPA to make sure you do it properly, because a lot of this is irreversible. Once you make the commitment, I mean, it's a nightmare. You've got to make sure you do it right from the beginning. So to create a new payroll item or edit an existing item, you go to the payroll item list, and then click at the payroll item on the bottom and select new or edit the payroll item. the list. And so these are primarily, these are all the default ones that come in here. Okay, and this was a California-based company, so that's why you see California versus Massachusetts. These are primarily the default ones. There's no real distinction between administrative and field people. So let me show you that. So lists, payroll item list. So if we do payroll item, we do new. So you want to do the, I think it's the custom setup. And you want to do a wage. And for the field hourly, it would be an hourly wage, regular pay. So in 2, if you pay overtime and all that, you have to create a category for each one of these, regular pay, overtime. So you see here, you've got salary, sick salary, vacation salary, overtime. Again, you have to create separate items for your field people, okay, relative to your administrative people, for each one of those particular types. So hit next. The hourly item is field hourly. Don't you just love my name? E-L-U-R. Okay. Next. So this is where you connect your account. See how its default is to 62.7. That's the expense account. Okay. So that's where it's going to default if you don't tell it otherwise. So what you want to do is to go up here and connect it to direct labor, which is not in here. So for example purposes, I just select subcontractors. So that's the basic element of setting each of them up. Now the other issue too is when you're setting up your payroll taxes. Okay? By default, the payroll taxes within QuickBooks will hit what I described as not here, they're going to hit below the line, they're going to hit to your overhead. Okay? So if the bulk of your employees, and if you're a contractor, most of your employees, your salary cost, your payroll cost is going to be your hourly employees. You want to move and direct all those payroll taxes up here. You can't split them. You can't say, well, I want payroll taxes for my administrative people going down here, and payroll taxes for my field people going up here. You have to choose one or the other. So I always tell people, if the bulk of your payroll is your field people, have it go up here, and there's ways to account for the fact that you've got some administrative, non-job related payroll taxes going up here. So the general setup is directed up here.
So if you do have a payroll service, that would just be under your chart of accounts?
Payroll service is complicated, and I think I touch on it here. Okay, right. Do I go into the accounting here? Yeah, so if you have a payroll service and you want job costs, it's complicated and it's way beyond the scope of this particular class, but it can be done. It's just, got a few people in the back there that have experience with it. It's clunky, it's not pretty, and it can be confusing and all of that, but you can get it to work. I've done it for people. It's done with a lot of journal entries and clearing accounts and all of that. All right, so whether or not you use payroll or not, as I touched on earlier, timesheet feature is a great way to capture time spent by employees, vendors, owners, partners, so at least you have a sense of how you're tracking relative to your particular budget items and all of that. So we've already established the preference in the what was it, time and mileage, so we checked off that, so that's all set to go. So as we demonstrated here, so if you go home, you have the ability to enter time and use weekly timesheet. And again, for any of you that are larger companies, QuickBooks has the capability of online timesheets, so you can connect electronically through the internet and have your people electronically. I haven't seen it firsthand, but it's a way of, instead of by paper, They can do it, they have handhelds and all that, they can connect electronically and put their time through there, and that can be then downloaded into QuickBooks. I don't know the expense and all that, I just know it can be done. So if we look at Greg, so again, we call up his name, this timesheet would be blank, so we would just tab through and pick the customer that he was working on, the particular service item he was performing, and then there would be here, if we were running bona fide payroll, there would be a payroll item here, so it would be field hourly or whatever. This is for class. And then you pick the day they were working on and indicate the hours that they were working on. So if you knew, you don't have to do a separate line for each day if it was the same job. So here, what you're distinguishing by is the job worked on and the function performed and the day of the week they did it. So in this case here, for the kitchen job at the Jacobsons, it was Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, just did installation, and it was just straight across. You can enter it that way. And then on Saturday, they spent a couple hours framing at the retail real estate. And here, as I showed you earlier, by marking it billable, you can take this time and put it on a customer invoice. And down here shows the total time worked. Now, I've having the binder suggested that if you do have employees, you can print a blank timesheet. Right here, print a blank timesheet. So at least they're using the same format as you. And you can give them the item list with the timesheet, and then the customer list, so that they have all the information relevant to be able to fill this out consistent with the information you have.
On your little sample here in the book, where it says met with the city permanent inspector to go over the work,
Yep.
and you go over the billable, it has two little weird looking things. It doesn't have the script, the check
Who's the employee?
Johnny Melton.
Who?
Johnny Melton.
Melton?
And then the sample over where it says billable, when he did his work most of the weekend, he's got that check with billable, and then underneath it has two different things.
Or just dashes.
Next to framing, is that something else?
Take a look.
Maybe mean targeted bill?
Yes, that means targeted bill. Yep. Yeah, I can't read that name. Let's go over here. Dan Miller, yeah. Dan Miller, isn't it? Dan, huh? Dan Miller. In this case, yeah, he's an employee. I just showed his number. There it is. So these two, yes, down here they've already been built. So the pre-title real estate framing, I guess that's the 12th and the 13th for 16 hours. Yes, that means they've already been built. You're welcome. So that's it to timesheets. It's pretty basic. Okay, that is here. If you go to, well, we might go over some reports, but just quickly, unbilled costs by job, and then you have, let's see, it should be an unbilled time. Yes, you can take one of these reports. Wait, hold on.
What was the question?
Is there a list where you can know what's been billed and unbilled? Is that what you're asking? There's one report that will do unbilled costs by job and show everything that has been billed, and then the other issue is time. And right here, billed, unbilled hours by person, and billed and unbilled hours by person and job. They don't have a combined report. Because one's time and the other one's dollars. Okay, so any question on payroll? So the general guideline is if you're going to do job costing, consider getting a payroll service. And I don't know if where they're at with the complete payroll. Like I said, you usually get notified of these things the last minute that they don't do complete payroll anymore. But what they do have is the ability to give you the tax tables and file the forms, actually give you the forms that you can print out and file like that. So payroll's real good. I have quite a few clients on it. They love it. It works beautifully. And really goes a long way to getting you the job costing you need. All right, the reporting section. So for those of you that are going to come on the 12th, I'm going to go into a lot more detail on how to create these reports, customize them, and all of that. So simply what I'm doing now is going through contractor-specific reports and basically what kind of information I give you. So QuickBooks Pro, we're starting with that first. These are the reports that QuickBooks Pro provides. And to access those reports, just click on the Reports button and click on Jobs, Time, and Mileage. And those are all the various job-related reports. So I'm going to go through a few of those. All right, profit and loss by job. So if we go, you can go to Reports, Jobs, Time, and Mileage. I'm sorry, that's Company Financial. Company Financial, profit and loss by job. Now, if I hit collapse, it's just an easier way to look at it. But these are all your jobs across the top. And here's all your accounts from your profit and loss. So at a glance, I'll change this to all dates. At a glance, you can see that repairs for Sonia Bristol, $70 profit, utility shed, $712.50. So you would just go through here and look for basically your winners and losers. And then at the very far right, this gives you the total of all the jobs, and this should match your profit and loss, your standard profit and loss. The total income, your total cost of goods sold, the gross profit, and then your net income. So this shows how each of those pieces, your income, your costs, your overhead, and your net income, how it shook out among each job. So you're basically looking for winners and losers, anything negative. You want to dig a little deeper and see why it's negative. I don't like that report as much because it's just difficult to read because it's just way over to the side. The report I like is under Jobs, Time, and Mileage, Job Profitability Summary. So if I hit collapse here, so I have my first column, which is for the actual costs. I have my actual revenue column, the middle column, and then I have basically my margin on a dollar basis here on the right. And if I scroll down, this gives me my totals. So at any given point, you can know where your winners and losers are. Now if I add, actually generally what I do, I'm going to skip around this part a little bit. If I add the column here, percentage difference, unfortunately, I don't know why QuickBooks does it, it'll calculate the difference between this difference column as a percentage of the actual cost. So it's not really giving you a margin percentage. So what you have to do to get that is to export it to Excel, to say a new Excel workbook, and I get rid of this little box there, so I don't have to have the instructions. I hit export, and I would just do a column here, percentage difference. Or actually, it's probably clearer is gross margin percentage. So we take this and divide it by the revenue, and we go down, right? So down, format the column to be percentages. well, that cell is percentage. Okay? So what you're doing here is you would look to see what your margin percentage is. So if it's 35%, 40%, or whatever, and you would go down here and see, okay, well, the Christie Abercrombie job was 11.5%. What happened? So you would go back into QuickBooks and
How is that different than the percentage difference that you can put into this report right here?
that's going to calculate the difference as a percentage of the actual cost.
Right, but if you go into modify report,
Yeah.
you just click that on, right?
Right, and it's going to do
So why?
this divided by actual cost. That's not your margin. It's doing this divided by your actual cost. Okay? So I don't know why QuickBooks does it. It's really for meaningful purposes for all of us. It should divide this by this, but it doesn't. So that's why you have to export it to Excel and see this. Sure. Right at the top there's a button, export, and it says new Excel workbook. It's a lot of variations you can do here, but the most simplistic is say I just want to jump into a new Excel workbook. It will include a new worksheet showing you the instructions and stuff. I generally don't include it. So then you hit export and it goes right into Excel. And so here, so again, for management purposes, you could say, well, my margin should be 40%, 45%, whatever, and whatever falls outside of that, then you could flag and go through. So there are, is down here, here's your 33%. So that's probably a good measure to say, hey, if I manage my business right, then overall, probably 33% should be my average. So anything below the 33%, I need to dig a little deeper. So let's see if there's a big job with below 33%.
But you would never have zero costs for any job.
No, you shouldn't. Remember, these are samples, okay, and these are a point in time. So maybe they've got money in, but they haven't attached cost to it. So remember, this is just a sample, not necessarily reality. I want to see if there's anything big below 33%. I don't think so. 65%. So if we just take, oh yeah, here's a good one. No, that was 79%. We'll just take this one. Jeanette Murnio. So you go back into QuickBooks, and you can do a couple of things. Jeanette Murnio, all right. Okay. So you can double click on here, and this will give you the detail for the various bills and things that are in there, and you can kind of review them, and you can double click and go into it and kind of get a little perspective that way. Same thing on the revenue side. You can double click here and just get a sense of what you build out and see if it makes sense. The other way is this report here, reports, jobs, time and mileage, job profitability detail. So we know Murnio, right? Oh, Memio, okay. Memio. And hit OK. And what this does is it now gives you the detail here for the various parts that you build them out for. So you could then export this and get the margins on each of these, and you might be able to isolate from all of these you build for what happened. What was driving the fact that this is a 20% margin project versus a 30% margin project. Okay? So that's the analysis you can do between QuickBooks and Excel. And I'm hoping they'll come up with a report that will calculate the gross margin percentage automatically, but presently they don't.
Did you import that back into QuickBooks?
Can I bring it back in? No. It's one way.
So it's the gross margin is the percent difference divided by the revenue times 100?
Yeah.
What was it? Is that right?
Yeah. All right, next report. Job estimates versus actuals. I went over this briefly. So you go to reports, job time mileage, job estimates versus actual summary. So again, if I hit collapse, just for ease of reading, so you show here the actual cost for Brian Cook was $23,000 versus $31,000. Again, I think it's weak here because it's showing a -8. Usually minus is negative, but that's a positive here. You were under here. And then as far as revenue, actual revenue was 30 versus estimated 34. But it doesn't net out the whole job, unfortunately, to say, okay, how did that shake out the whole job as a whole? Because you're basically to the good about $5,000. So again, you could dump this into QuickBooks, add that column, so here you can expand for the Brian Cook job and see that you had a second story addition in the kitchen. You get a sense of if one of the jobs was worse than the other. I'm sorry, better on the revenue side. See, this is a smaller amount, so it's really driving Cook job on the estimate side is the second story addition. That was quite a bit under, almost 15% from the revenue standpoint. And again, so if you're jumping to the future and you're doing something for me and saying, hey, I know that the bathroom job for Frank is similar to the Kirsty Abercrombie job here, you can take a look here and say, wow, I estimated it to be $3,000, it was $9,000. So with dining, I'm going to estimate it to be, $9,000-10,000. So I don't lose out like I did on the Kirsty job. So again, in a matter of seconds, you have some information here that can help you on a going forward basis. Item profitability. So up here, reports, job time mileage, item profitability. So again, this shows for this company throughout their history, because this is all dates, how well they've done on billing for the items and the products and services that they provide. Again, you can dump this into QuickBooks and do the margin analysis and all of that to see how this all shakes out. So again, any items that aren't falling into line relative to the margins you set, you can dump or modify or increase prices or work out some deals with your vendors. And like I said before, you do have the sales by item summary that should give you some margin analysis there as well. It doesn't do it for all of them. Actually just does it for the inventory. Yeah, so this report only shows the margin for the inventory items. So if you don't carry inventory, this report won't give you that information. And then time by job. Okay, so you have the amount of time that was allotted to each of these jobs, and again, this will show up whether you use payroll or not. And you can add a column. Let's see, what is that? Estimated. Okay, so again, you can export this to Excel and add a column to calculate the difference of what the actual time is relative to what you estimated. Again, know where your winners or losers are, and then you can drill further into QuickBooks to understand, hey, let's just see if I can use another. Yeah, we got Brian Cook Kitchen, estimated 76, total hours 154. Okay, why? And you can go back and dig a little deeper and find out what happened. 1099 summary. So this very quickly gives you what QuickBooks is reporting as your 1099 vendors, how much activity you have with them during the course of the year, and this would serve as the basis for you preparing your 1099s out of QuickBooks. So if you're not doing your 1099s out of QuickBooks, I strongly recommend it. It's very easy and very quick, depending on what you're paying other people to do it for you. And then workers' comp. Yep, it's another comment. Workers' comp summary. Let's see, where is that? Where's the payroll? I mean, tell me this isn't powerful. I mean, you have here all your various workers' comp codes. So remember, we set up the codes with the rates per 100, and we categorize them by employee. And so this gives you the gross wages, and factors in overtime, whether that's part of the calculation or not, total hours, the workers' comp rate, and the workers' comp premium for it. And you can get a lot more detail in here. This is just a summary report, so you know, okay, my premium should have been $11,000. So you can go in far more detail. So here you have it by employee and by code. And this is where you can get into the debate with the workers' comp auditors.
And can you do that for subcontractors as well?
Beg your pardon? Yeah, if they don't have certificates. I think so. Let me check. Good question. I haven't been asked that really. It's kind of code vendors. No, I guess not.
Because mine, when he comes in and does an audit, he'll come in and he'll ask me for a report of all of course, my items and stuff weren't right, but all the labor that I paid. So if I paid a framer $600,000 this year, and I've got a certificate, it's fine. But
right.
Like if I pay a roofer, one roofer that just did an addition, and I paid him $1,500, and I don't have a certificate, then they charge me back to that.
Right.
So they want to make sure that everybody that I pay, they want to mesh it up. So you have to give them a list. And
right. So out of here, no, we can't attach a workers' comp class code to it. It's just for employees.
Is there a chart here with all the codes, the amount for workers' comp?
No, you enter them in there.
You enter yourself.
Yeah. So again, you get that from the insurance.
Does it change every year?
Yeah, so like you said here, the starting date, so if you change the amount, you say, okay, well, the date is going to go from, this date is effective from 1/1/2009 going forward. So one effective thing is going backwards. All right, I believe that's the QuickBooks Pro reports. So those are all available in QuickBooks Pro. The next reports are unique to QuickBooks Premier. So everything I just showed you is available in QuickBooks Premier. Next reports are strictly QuickBooks Premier. So job costs by vendor and job. So if you go up to reports, you're going to have a different way to get into it. It's shown in your booklet there. So here, for me, since I have the accountant edition, this is how I get into it. But job costs by vendor and job summary. So this report shows for each vendor, each job that they worked on and how much you paid them. And you can go the other way. Reports. Job cost by job and vendor summary. So the jobs you had in each vendor. And again, this is real helpful because historically when you go back and you're having your vendors price out a new project and it's related to an older project that you know and their numbers are quite different from what they priced for the previous job, you have the history here to say, hey, you're pricing the Guinan job at $20,000, but you did the Abercrombie job for, $15,000, why the $5,000 difference, kind of thing. So you have the history back here to be able to connect what you paid your vendors for particular projects. Cost to complete. This is a great report that again, is available in some of the larger packages that you pay tens of thousands of dollars for. What it will do for you is it comes up here with the screen is prompting you for percentage complete. So for Abercrombie, if I said framing was 100% complete, 100% complete here. So we're about 75% complete there. Subs electrical is 25%, and then 0, 0, and I hit OK. You'll now calculate what the job will look like if you track according to the actual costs you put in to date. So it says basically overall, Christie Abercrombie is 59% complete. So if you're like, no, they're not 59% complete, they're close to 40, then you go back and play with those numbers. Or you're like, well, 75% complete. So you can go back, play around with those numbers I just did in and make sure that this makes sense. But here it's saying your original estimated cost was $3,000, you're about 59% complete. You put in $8,300 worth of bills, so the cost to complete is about $1,200. So the expected actual cost to be $9,600. You're going to be $6,600. I believe that's over, right? Estimated cost is $3,000. Yeah. So you have, again, it shows a positive number. So here you go. Wow. If I keep tracking the way I'm tracking, I'm going to be $6,600 over on this job. And again, you can put these numbers in at any phase in the project. If you're 2 weeks into the project and something funky happened early on in the project, you can account for that here, put it in here and say, okay, what's this impact going to be if things continue to happen like this for the whole job? So again, something very powerful that you can do at any stage. Expenses not assigned to jobs. This is a good for an owner to make sure that the person coding, doing the data entry, has captured everything. So this is a nice report to check on occasion. So you look in here and say, Blue Plumbing. Okay, you double click on it and say, actually this was a straight line, that's why that's not showing here, but just pretend that this was not assigned to a job. You can go in here and change it, put it to the job, and then it will disappear from this list. This is a good way when you're looking back saying, have I accounted for everything? This will pick up on it. Billed or unbilled by person and job. Okay, so we have the 3 columns here. So you have the total billed, the total unbilled, and then what's considered not billable. So you have the capability of going in here and saying, 24 hours not billable, and get back here and check your information and say, no way, that was billable. And you could click here and add billable and add it to the billable column here, and then enable to put that on a customer invoice. Unbilled, you like 124 hours unbilled. Again, it could be a data entry error and something you can keep on top of and say, wow, we haven't billed out 124 hours worth of stuff here on Dan. Let's get those bills out, kind of thing. But this tells you at a glance where you are at from a billing status. And it's all driven by this column here, available. Make sure you're using that properly. And last one, anyone use purchase orders? No, I'll skip that one then. Just do the export feature. Customized reports. Okay, so we're in the last section here. Okay, the key thing, and it's disappointing a lot of people had to leave because maybe I'll restructure this next time to make sure it's shown. You were all till 5 o'clock, weren't you?
Yes.
I don't know why so many people had to leave, but well, you're all getting this, and this is critical. If you're using QuickBooks properly, there are 3 reports that you want to connect. There's your P&L. We'll change this to all. There's your job profitability. And there's your item profitability. Okay, see if you follow the logic here. Okay. Your P&L is that document that its primary purpose is for a quick look at how you're doing at a given point in time, and also to give to your CPA for tax purposes. So what this gives is your total income number, again, your job-related costs and your gross profit, your overhead, and your bottom line. Again, in business, we all live and die by our gross margin. So if you've been using QuickBooks properly, you all should ask the next question, saying, well, that's fine and dandy. Okay, I've got a gross profit of 410 grand. How did that shake out among my jobs? So then you go over to your job profitability summary, and you should have a relationship between these 2 screens. So you have total revenue of 670. If you've been coding everything properly, these numbers should match or be close to it. So 669 versus 670, close enough. Okay. Then on your cost side, your total job-related costs are 258. This is showing 446. Okay. Now that's primarily due to this overhead thing, but generally from a training purpose, this is usually where people have trouble because they're not using 2-sided items. They are using the expense tab versus the items tab. So this is where usually a lot of people have problems in the data entry. So there usually is a discrepancy between this number and the number on the P&L. Those should be close. So in this instance, they're off by a couple $100 grand. Okay, because your gross margin here is showing at 410. On this report here, it's showing 224. So from your standpoint here, gross margin is driven by your jobs. So the question would be, what the heck happened? I need to know my gross margin showing 410 grand. I need to connect that to my jobs because I need to know my winners and losers on my jobs. And then the next step here is your item profitability. On all those products and services that you bill out for, this is showing 448. So that's close to gross margin. It's still off by $38,000. From an advisor standpoint, I would say that's still something of concern. So your goal, for those of you out there who are owners and managers, your goal is to make sure who's ever doing the data entry, whether that's yourself or a bookkeeper or an office manager, is your goal to use this properly is these 3 numbers would be as close to matching as possible. Because then you could go and say, my gross margin is X, I see how my jobs impacted my gross margin, and I see how my pricing of my products and services impacted my margin. And there you can make your adjustments because everything's connected. So that's the training I do. When I sit down with people, I review them from a data entry standpoint. I bring up these 3 reports. If they tie up, great. Success, they get a gold star. If it doesn't, I help them troubleshoot why they didn't get those particular items to match.
The item profitability you would attach that you paid what you paid your employees as an expense against that, right?
Correct, yeah. Regularly go into that, yeah. You all said purchase orders weren't important. And change orders, as I described here, they're relatively weak. Simply when a change is made to an estimate, QuickBooks simply adds a description at the bottom of the estimate that a change was made. There's no separate change order created. So the best way to handle change orders within QuickBooks is to create a separate estimate and just call it a change order, give it a different numbering. That's the best way to do it. If change orders are important, consider buying third-party software for that. Invoices and estimates are fully customizable. We still have 15 minutes here. I think between change orders, the customization, and WIP accounting. The WIP accounting basically means QuickBooks for any of you who build spec houses, so you own the property, you own the building until you particularly sell it. QuickBooks can accommodate that. So if any one of these topics you want me to go into a little more detail, I can spend the next 15 minutes on it. If not, then we're done. So did anyone want any more detail on any of those topics? Yes?
The invoice and estimate customization,
Okay.
that's probably.
Is that what you're interested in?
Oh, no, that's it.
Beg your pardon?
I was gonna go, no, not on these topics. So-
Not in these topics, something else? Okay. Let me show you the customization first. Customization's pretty similar for all of them. So let's just take a standard invoice here. Castle. So there's a customize button here at the top. It's a little ruler kind of thing. And if I click customize, I have a lot of options here. Now, QuickBooks will not allow you to customize a QuickBooks template, and it will tell you that. So you cannot customize it, so it'll want you to duplicate it. So when you do that, you just go into your lists, you go into your template list, and so like this, into a product invoice, that's a standard one. If I right click it, I can duplicate it. It says what type do you want to do. I hit OK, and it will create a duplicate. And then I can fully customize that. Okay. So this Rock Castle invoice is a fully customizable one. So there's a lot of different things you can do. Is there any particular things you'd like to see? Because this is pretty deep. There's a lot of different customization. What kind of things were you interested in knowing about customizing your?
Well, one thing was bringing verbiage in, contractual verbiage.
Okay, that's more on the memorized side of things. There is here on the where would that be? Additional customization. You have a footer, and you can put a lot of information in here that will show up on that Rock Castle invoice. So that's one way to get some verbiage in. The other way to get verbiage in is if you went into the well, you were talking an estimate. So we went into a estimate. And if we just said this was a standard one, right down here in description, you can type in whatever you want here. And that'll be in the body of the estimate. And then you would go up here and hit edit, memorize the estimate. So you would create a template, put in all the standard things that happen 90% of the time, 95% of the time with your verbiage, hit memorize, and it would show up here on your memorized transaction list. And then you would just double click it, it would come up, and then you would just customize it according to the specifics. You change the customer name, and you change the amounts and any other things that are unique to that particular project. Now, the other cool thing about customization is you can add a logo, and that is, let's see, that is here. Let's go on. Beg your pardon?
It's in the layout design.
No, it's not layout design. It's for that. Yep, good catch. Use logo right here. So just so you understand, I have a great customer story. They had a graphic designer design their logo, and so I showed them how to use this feature. I leave, they put the logo on, and then the accounts receivable person calls me panicking. Frank, I just tried to print 5 invoices and only 2 come out, and it's been an hour. What's going on? What's happening? So I said, so what happened? What did you do different to your invoice? And he said, oh, we brought in a logo. I said, oh, okay. What was the size of that logo? Well, it was in the wrong format. It was 2 megabytes by itself. So they got another size logo that was a couple hundred kilobytes, and made all the difference in the world. So be careful of, if you're using a logo, make sure the size isn't too big. It should be in the kilobytes, not in megabytes. But here you would, it'll take bitmap, it'll take JPEG, it'll take most standard image files, GIF format. So pretty much anything your graphic designer would do, it should be able to bring in. You just have to be careful with the file size. And then you have here the layout designer. And this, you can add text fields, data fields. So if you wanted to add, because if you see on here already, it's got the company information, it's got the name and address field, it's got the job field and all of that. So if you wanted to add other things in here, like due date, I don't know why it doesn't put a check box, but since I've highlighted it, it's chosen it. So now I can take due date and drag the whole thing over here and do that, and then it's expandable. Come on. If I want to make the box bigger, wider, move it.
Oh.
Come on. So make it bigger. All of these columns you can customize these little boxes here. It's a two-headed arrow now, so that means I can drag this over. So I mean, pretty much anything and everything you want to do with Invoice. Adding fields, changing the sizes, moving things around, having things appear on the screen, not appear on the screen, you can do. So if you see here, you have two boxes here. You have a screen checkbox and a print checkbox. If you check off the screen and not off the print, that means you see it, but it won't print out for the customer. So if there's certain information here you don't want them to see, you would uncheck the print box. And then here is the print preview. So as you go online, you can see the kind of work you've done. You can zoom in and see if the changes you've made look good. If not, it brings you back and you can continue making changes.
And you can change all the things. You can put in your own.
Descriptions, yes. All those descriptions are modified. Yeah. Then it has other fields, and those are weak. You can't use those in the reports, and I don't even know why they have them in there. From my standpoint, from a reporting format and getting information, those mean nothing. But they can add fields or columns to your invoice or estimate. So the point of this is great flexibility in modifying these forms. Anything else on that list you all wanted to see? Anything more about customization? Okay.
I have another question. It doesn't have anything to do with that.
That's fine.
When you do employees, when you put your employee in, did you do that two-sided so that you, like if you put a subcontractor in and he's an electrician and he bills at 40 and you bill at 60, it's two-sided. Do you do your employees the same way, or you don't?
No, you don't. It's not that kind of setup, right?
And if you,
with the employees, what you can do is you put in their hourly rate, and then
right,
you can put them at a billing rate level. You can attach that to them.
when you do the item, as you set the item form.
Actually, it's a, I don't remember price levels. You would create a billing rate level,
Okay.
and you would attach that like you attach price levels to customers.
Okay.
You attach the billing rate level to the employee. So
Okay.
if you're paying them $25 an hour, but you bill them out at 50, that's what that billing rate level would be.
Okay, and then when you have stuff that you click in there that's billable, if you don't invoice from that billable, like you showed me, where you clicked and you've got your materials and your labor, if you don't ever use that and you invoice the customer as a 30% or a third of the job and you invoice them, does that ever go away, or does that always just stay in there? You have to go in and clear that out, that billable.
It stays there forever. You're right, and a lot of people, you know what you can find out is, I think, unfortunately, the default is to make it billable. So if you're not paying attention and you go to that unbilled cost by job, even though you didn't intend it to be billable, it's going to show up in that report. So that's a good point.
And you not double click on it and have it bring it back to wherever it was generated and unclick the billable box then?
Well, I think he's talking when you initially enter it, not, are you talking when you?
He said if you don't use it, like when you put the time and cost and whatever, and you use all those different tabs to bill somebody, and you leave some of the things there and don't put it on the invoice, he was asking if it'd be there forever, and you said, yeah, and I'm saying, can you not double click on the ones that are just there forever, and have them send it back to where they originated and unclick the logos because they're not on that list anymore?
Well, let's see if I'm following this. Hold on. So let's do.
Yeah.
Okay, Dan Miller, and do Abercrombie, doing painting. 8 hours. Yep, see how it came up? Comes up automatically billable.
It comes up automatically billable.
So if I save and close that and forget to check that off,
And you say that, and now you go and you're going to bill Abercrombie
yep,
a third of the job,
right,
and it comes up you're going to bill $3,300 out of a $10,000 job, but you didn't do it with using the billable stuff.
right.
So then you go back and look at your billable versus, because we were actually discussing whether or not using that was time and materials, but you can use it either way. But if you don't click off of that, it sort of hangs out there in limbo. So you have to go back and clean that up.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
So that's, I don't know why it comes up default, because a lot of people don't pay attention, and I've been there, and it's been sitting there, and it's contaminating the other reports, so.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so you just have to be aware of that. Yes?
I have a question. We kind of started talking about it in the first session, how to import, like if you have clients, if you have them on an Excel sheet,
Yeah?
how do you import that into,
Oh, yeah, I can show you that.
You doing?
Yeah, you can export to Excel, and you can import from Excel. So, yeah, the export from Excel is right up here, Excel, export customer list, and then just follow the instructions. Okay, so you use that. And then importing, if you go up here, this is a little more complicated. Utilities, import, these are all the various files that QuickBooks can import from. And if you import from Excel, it's got these various, you can import customer list, vendor list, item list, and advanced import, that's your chart of accounts and all of that. So you would just follow the screen. Yeah. It's been a while. Yeah, I've been teaching this since 2004, so they had it back then. It's changed. Now they have templates, which I find annoying. I think all of these are driven by templates, so you can't just import from an Excel spreadsheet that you've already designed. You've got to copy and paste from a spreadsheet you have in Excel and put it into their template. They've got it structured a certain way, so you have to be aware of that. No, you were here earlier? Yeah, no, me too. Yes.
I used a 2007 for the air edition,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no 9 on there, correct? So
9's out.
yeah, are they gonna shut me off again from email and invoices?
3 years, 2010.
2010.
Yeah.
So you can use this one.
Yep.